Fran Brown, head coach of Syracuse, has said publicly he is looking to add multiple quarterbacks in the transfer portal. The question is, what types of quarterbacks is he looking to add? And I remember we had a very similar conversation to what we're about to have right now when Fran Brown said last spring that he's looking to add a quarterback. He named Rickie Collins the starter before the spring game. Rickie Collins didn't even play in the spring game with an injury. And Fran Brown said, hey, we're looking to add a quarterback. We came on here and we said, okay, what type of quarterback is he looking for? Is he looking for another veteran, possibly a backup? Or is he looking for someone that is certainly capable of starting? Lo and behold, it was the latter. It was Steve Angeli, someone who was certainly capable of starting. So what type of quarterback is Fran Brown looking for? He's looking for two. That we know for sure. Well, here are the types, and this option is the most preferred, but it's also going to be the toughest one to get. And that is someone that we know for certain is capable of starting. If Syracuse were to get someone that we know for certain can start games and play at least at a very serviceable level, then they protect themselves with the Steve Angeli injury. And it doesn't have to be someone that is elite. A name that I think of, and it's someone that Syracuse was targeting last portal season, and that was in December, was Anthony Calandria. He was the Virginia starter for a couple of years, and I didn't want him to be the full-time starter for Syracuse. But hindsight is 2020. I think he would have been a solid option for Syracuse, especially behind Steve Angeli. He ends up going to UNLV and has had a pretty nice year over with UNLV. So that's the archetype that I would be looking for if I'm looking for someone that is certainly capable of starting games. But there are obviously concerns, and it's not necessarily about the ability of these types of quarterbacks. Number one, these guys don't come cheap. So how much of your budget are you willing to allocate to someone who might just be a backup quarterback? We know the backup quarterback is important, but also you might not ever use the backup quarterback. In 2024, Michael Johnson Jr. was the backup to Kyle McCord. He appeared in one game, and that was in the fourth quarter against Holy Cross. Thankfully, Kyle McCord remained healthy for the entire season. We don't know how Michael Johnson Jr. would have turned out over the course of 2024. But that's a scenario in which, hey, your starter was healthy the entire year. That's awesome. So your backup quarterback is just there, holding a clipboard on the sideline, patiently waiting for the opportunity to play, which may never come. It obviously can come, as we learned this season and as we've learned in previous seasons, but you never know. So how much money are you willing to spend? And you are going to be spending a lot of money on someone that is capable of starting games. Just food for thought. The other concern with getting someone that is certainly capable of starting is the fact that Syracuse can't offer that guy a true opportunity to start. Sure, Fran Brown can say, hey, it's going to be a competition between that player and Steve Angeli. Steve Angeli was leading the nation in passing through 4 games. Good luck to that quarterback being better than Steve Angeli. It's possible. And who knows how Steve Angeli is going to recover from the torn Achilles. So you can maybe sell a quarterback on that. But someone who is capable of starting is obviously going to want to play. These are competitors. It's not all about the paycheck. And Steve Angeli has got multiple years of eligibility remaining. So this is not a scenario in which you're Oregon a couple of years ago, you get Dillon Gabriel and Dante Moore out of the portal, and you could just tell Dante Moore, hey, sit for 1 year behind Dillon Gabriel, we'll pay you a ton of money, and then you'll be the starter in 2025. No, Syracuse would be asking this quarterback to potentially sit for multiple years. Would that quarterback be willing to do that? I'm not entirely sure, but it's obviously the most preferred option to get someone who is certainly capable of starting games. The next option is someone that we definitely know for sure can be a proven backup quarterback for Syracuse. Someone that can steady the ship, hold the fort down while the starter for Syracuse is out. And the player that I think of is Grayson James from Boston College. Now, before you say, hey, is Jackson saying go get Grayson James in the portal? No. Grayson James doesn't have any more eligibility remaining. I'm just saying that's the type of quarterback that I think would fit Syracuse. Because Grayson James, as we saw in the final game of the regular season, and as we have seen in previous years at Boston College, he's definitely capable of playing. He's a serviceable guy. You know he really can't be your starting quarterback full time. But if you said, hey, Grayson James, we need you to fill in for a couple of games. Hey, Dylan Lonergan in a couple of plays goes down with an injury. We need you to finish out the game and go beat Syracuse, or any team for that matter. He can maybe do it. And so I think that someone like him would be perfect for Syracuse to add, because this is also a player who is not necessarily looking for an opportunity to start, because nobody is really offering him a full-time starting opportunity. So this archetype, a proven type backup quarterback, definitely makes sense for Syracuse. You also don't have to necessarily break the bank for a player like him. The risk is that they're backups for a reason, and over time, they will showcase themselves as backups. These are meant to be guys who can fill in for a couple of games, keep the ship on course, but you need the starter to come back. Otherwise, it's probably not going to end well. So again, I only mentioned Grayson James as someone who fits that mold of a proven backup type quarterback, but obviously Grayson James is not an option for Syracuse because he's got no more eligibility remaining anyway. And finally, this is fun. You got the boomer bust archetype that Syracuse could look to add. This was Rickie Collins entering last season. He was a boomer bust type quarterback that the Orange added, and we know that he was obviously a bust. But there's a reason why it's a boom or bust. Occasionally, it could boom. Want to know who I think of that ended up having, I don't know if he was a complete boom, but someone who ended up working out pretty well for Syracuse? It's an actually recent memory. Started for about 2.5 years from 2021 to 2023. Garrett Schrader. Garrett Schrader was at Mississippi State for a couple seasons. He did play some at quarterback, but he was also a wide receiver at Mississippi State. When he came over to Syracuse, did anyone think that he was going to be amazing? Maybe, but you also had to acknowledge that there was a big bust potential with him. He might not turn out well. And it's funny because when Syracuse added Garrett Schrader, they had a quarterback coming off a major injury in Tommy DeVito. So they needed to protect themselves in case DeVito wasn't really fully healthy or did not play well, which ended up being the case. He didn't play well, and Garrett Schrader took the spot, and the rest is history. Kind of funny how it comes all full circle here with Garrett Schrader. But he transferred from Mississippi State with some experience at quarterback, some at wide receiver, and he ended up leading Syracuse to a bowl game in 2022 and in 2023. He wasn't perfect. That's why I don't say, hey, he was some major boom. He became a Heisman caliber quarterback. No, but he had his moments and he won some games for Syracuse. Bottom line is you can add a boomer bust quarterback, and sometimes that quarterback will end up working out for you. Just because it didn't work out for Rickie Collins doesn't mean it won't work for the next quarterback that Syracuse looks to add.